radar.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Meteorologist Mike Linden, coming at you live from the Orlando, Florida, My Radar Studios. We had some technical difficulties this morning with the Facebook live stream, but we should be good to go. Should have those issues resolved moving forward. If you are new to one of these live streams, welcome. The way that we normally do this is if you have any questions for me, if you have any comments, questions, whatever you may have, please pop it in the comments, and I will answer those questions, whether it be now or later. We have certainly been busy with Hurricane Dorian, and there is new information to talk about from last night and into this morning now that has started to change some things a little bit. But Hurricane Dorian has slowed down considerably, not necessarily in wind speed. It's dropped from 180 to 165. That still categorizes it as a Category 5. But the overall movement of the storm has greatly diminished, only moving west now at 1 mile per hour. That may be a good thing for the Florida coastline, but maybe not so much so for the Bahamas, as that storm is simply just sitting on top of them at this present moment. But as you can see from the map here, there are several areas that are now under a watch or a warning, a hurricane warning. It's covered there, but it does extend from the just north of West Palm Beach area through Vero Beach and all the way through Melbourne. A tropical storm watch, that's that orangey brown kind of box there, and you can see those extending all the way into central Florida. Those are tropical storm watches. If the boxes are filled in, it is now a tropical storm warning, meaning that you can expect tropical storm force winds here as Dorian makes its final approach. So if you still have not made your hurricane prep, you still have time, but that time is very fast running out. Here's a look at the infrared imagery of Dorian. It still continues to impress as a very large, very powerful storm, and it just breaks your heart seeing the video and the pictures coming out of the Bahamas as that was on approach of the storm, let alone what is happening at this present moment in time. It breaks your heart. 24 straight hours of this. Rough, super rough. As it stands as well, Dorian is not too far away from the Florida coastline. You can almost kind of see that buzzsaw-like appearance. In fact, I just retweeted a video from our storm chaser, Aaron Jajak, and you can see kind of the outflow of Dorian. I highly suggest you check that out. He is in, I believe, Vero Beach. But there is the eye of the storm. You can see it sitting right on top of the Bahamas. Just a very, very unpleasant experience, to say the very least, as catastrophic damage is still underway in the Bahamas. So you got to keep those people in your thoughts. Here's a look at the radar satellite imagery of Dorian, and it continues to come into form here as it approaches the Florida coastline. The green, that is the precipitation. That is the radar, though, and we can now really start to see a lot of Dorian as it approaches the United States, as it starts to show up more on radar. You can also see the showers and storms from the northern end of Dorian beginning to get pulled in toward the eastern coastline too. On the live sweeping radar, this is an hour loop here, and you can see that over the past hour, well, Dorian hasn't moved all that much. Again, not great for the Bahamas, but at least for the eastern coast of Florida, it's now just a wait and see as to when it is going to make that northward turn and head away from the Sunshine State. Again, moving at 1 mile per hour. It is very slow, but something I want to point out to you, we've talked many times about this already. You can see that kind of secondary eye trying to form there, the concentric bands in the middle of the storm. Well, that could mean that the storm is beginning to weaken a little bit, which is somewhat of a good thing, but as to when it is going to make that turn and at what intensity on what path, that still remains a little uncertain. But again, for everyone that lives along the eastern coastline of the state of Florida, you need to have your hurricane plan in place, as the National Hurricane Center has kept it as a Category 5, but expects it to make that turn over the next 18 or so hours today, make it a real close run at the Space Coast of Florida. If there is going to be a place where we could potentially be a landfall, it is going to be right here, again, north of West Palm Beach, into and around the Cape Canaveral area, through Melbourne, and all the way north into the Jacksonville area, as this is a very similar path to Hurricane Matthew in 2016. And we know that even staying along the coastline like this, with as powerful as a storm as Dorian is, it could certainly still result in big time issues, again, along the coastline when it comes to storm surge, when it comes to beach erosion, when it comes to just the coastal flooding, as well as the flash flooding inland as a result of all of the rain. Notice by later this week, by Thursday, still a very powerful major hurricane as a Category 3 sitting off the coastline of southeastern Georgia and near the Charleston area. Still avoiding a landfall, at least according to the official National Hurricane Center track, but look right up here near Cape Hatteras. Interestingly enough, that could be a potential landfall near Cape Hatteras, near the Wilmington, North Carolina area, which, of course, was battered by Hurricane Florence last year. But remember, while this is the official path, this red line here, it's all about the cone. It's all about the cone of uncertainty, this white cone here. Everything within it is still under the gun from potential impact from Dorian. So don't sleep on this storm just yet, folks, especially for those that live in eastern Florida. And for us here in central Florida, in Orlando, we're not too far away from the coastline, so it is certainly still something that even us here are closely watching. A storm surge warning in effect already for a good chunk of the eastern coastline of the state of Florida, and up near Flagler Beach and north of Titusville, a storm surge watch. The possibility of storm surge between 4 to 7 feet within a 24 to 48 hour span, and that is expected to happen here shortly. But what exactly is storm surge? Well, it is essentially when the ocean water rises above normal sea level due to an increase in winds. That is why storm surge is such a huge player in an event like such as a hurricane or a tropical storm to somewhat of a degree. So you just saw, 4 to 7 feet? So that would mean 4 to 7 feet of water that wasn't there beforehand now comes ashore. You can see in this particular example, anything above 12 feet is going to be certainly very, very extreme, but even 4 to 7 feet of water is still enough to make for some big headaches. Again, you can see if I rewind in this graphic here, there's 6 feet right there. So it would certainly be enough for folks that live along the coastal areas to be impacted in a major way. That is why a lot of evacuations have already begun to take place, so continue to heed the warnings of local officials. Again, numerous tropical watches and warnings in effect for the eastern coastline of the Sunshine State. A hurricane warning in place for many counties north of Jupiter Beach and Deerfield Beach all the way up to near Titusville. A hurricane watch in effect for the rest of the coastline, and a tropical storm warning in effect for a lot of the more inland areas. So it is, again, something that the National Hurricane Center is warning that this could certainly be a big problem for the eastern coastline of Florida, as just a minor shift in the track of Dorian could potentially result in some huge changes to what you will actually see. For anyone that is, by the way, today is Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to you. If you are vacationing at any of the beaches along the southeastern coast of the U.S. or eastern Florida, well, the beach is not going to be too pleasant here over the next couple of days. High surf with seas up by about 7 to 10 feet as boating becomes incredibly dangerous, and the rip current as well continues to be a huge risk. So Dorian impacting not only Florida, but a lot of the beaches all the way into and around the North and South Carolina area. But we've talked a lot about the steering and what's going to happen with Dorian here moving forward, but we've talked a lot about this ridge of high pressure to the northeast. Remember, high pressure rotates clockwise. So all the air in the upper levels is moving around this thing in a counterclockwise motion. What's important to remember about Dorian is that a hurricane is low pressure, right? It spins counterclockwise. So what's happening with Dorian as it works its way west here, it's just catching this ridge of high pressure and just riding it west. But look over the United States right here, a trough of low pressure here, right? Whereas a ridge is an upside down U, a trough is a U shape. That trough is digging into right now the central and eastern portion of the United States, and that's going to work to kind of shift and dig underneath this ridge and begin to lift it this way toward the northeast. Now, this actual ridge is a semi-permanent structure here, not structure, but is a semi-permanent feature, I should say, over Bermuda this time of year. It's called the Bermuda High. As it gets into winter, this high lifts northward and kind of stays there. But this time of year, acts as a big-time steering current for tropical disturbances like hurricanes. So as this ridge of high pressure begins to lift and retreat that way, as that trough digs in, that's why Dorian is really slowing down right now. It's kind of caught between the ridge and the trough, right? So it's slowing down to the point where it's trying to get adjusted to which direction it's going to go. That's why it's barely moving right now. But it's expected that Dorian begins to turn northward here over the next 12 to 18 or so hours as that ridge to the northeast begins to break down. So that is what is happening steering-wise. I hope that makes sense because it is important to understand. But as far as what we can expect out of the wind radii, this is just showing us the wind field away from the center of the storm and how it will impact land. The yellow color there is tropical storm force sustained winds. So you can see it that would be impact a lot of the eastern coast of Florida, especially as you get toward that orange color where it's more of a larger wind field. Again, you can see that the red, that's that hurricane force wind starting to break down as it works its way northward and gains some latitude. But according to the National Hurricane Center, here within the next 12 hours for folks that live in the West Palm Beach area, northward through Vero Beach and into Melbourne, that they are likely to start to feel those tropical storm force winds between 40 and near 80 miles per hour beginning again tonight at around 8 o'clock, if not before that. You can see this line here. Let me draw on. Let me grab the pointer tool right here. This is Monday tonight at 8 p.m. And that purple color is the strongest of the winds. And you can see that extends all the way into the Kennedy Space Center area, again in Cape Canaveral. So we will be watching this very, very closely here over the day today because, again, Dorian should begin its turn and its final approach to the coastline of Florida today. And that should give us a very, very good idea as to what is happening out of this storm. The model runs continue, though, to pull off the coastline, which is good, although you can see that that one particular model run there continues to show that there could be a potential landfall in Florida, so it is still in play. The National Hurricane Center has not ruled that out by any means. So for folks that live along Florida's east coast, you need to prepare, let alone for the life-threatening storm surge, but also, as it says in that second bullet point there, a slight deviation in the path could potentially bring Dorian over Florida. And that would make for some big issues, let alone what could potentially happen along the coast. But if that thing moves inland, there could be a farther inland extent of damage. So that's certainly, again, what we will have to watch out for here over the next 24 hours or so. But now, even for folks that live in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, you've all started to appear in the National Hurricane Center forecasts, meaning you need to be enacting that hurricane plan now. Even for folks that live in the Cape Hatteras area of North Carolina, it will be a totally different storm by the time it works its way to you later this week, but you really need to do what you need to do when it comes to making sure you have food and water, that you, your loved ones, your neighbors, your pets, your livestock, everyone is well and taken care of, and that you are doing your best to prepare for this storm as it approaches you. Remember, Dorian is a Category 5 right now, perhaps one of the strongest that we've ever seen in the Atlantic Basin. But let's just run through the Saffir-Simpson scale real quick. Category 1, 74 to 95 miles per hour. Category 2, 96 to 110. Category 3 and above is a major hurricane, 111 miles per hour to 129. At this point, tree limbs can come down very easily, and even roof shingles can get ripped off. Category 4, 120 to 156. This is where the damage begins to get a bit extreme, or the winds get extreme, rather, and the damage is catastrophic. step 5, or category 5, I should say, 157 mile per hour winds and above. Dorian currently at 165, I believe. Pull it up here. Yep, 165 miles per hour. So Dorian is still a category 5, but is now beginning to kind of pull away a little bit and start to show some signs of weakening. So that could be a good thing as it works its way along the eastern coastline of the state of Florida and starts to suck up some cool water along the coastline compared to where it is right now. So let me look over at the comments as we do. If you guys have any questions, concerns for me, now is the time. And then we will say goodbye here. Let me pull up the stream on Twitter. It closed on me here. Not seeing anything there. And it looks like we are all set elsewhere. Good. Well, I'm glad that I could help. Og, you got it, sir. Or can't tell by the picture. But either way, hope that you understand things a bit more. We will be here through the rest of the morning and into the afternoon. Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson will be here to take you the rest of the way forward. Let me pull this up for you here. Give me one moment. Here is our social media information. If you are not already, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, youtube.com/myradar. Be sure to click on that subscribe button, and don't forget to click on the bell that we always know whenever we drop a new video. We've got all of our Hurricane Dorian coverage there. We've got tutorial videos. We have documentaries, My Radar reports with our special correspondent, John Zarella, who's on the eastern coast of Florida. Check those out. Those are there as well. In the meantime, be safe and be dry. From all of us here at My Radar, I am Meteorologist Mike Linden. We will catch you in the next one.